there he is, Matt Damon, big time, former sexiest man of the year, and actor, film producer, of course, Good Will Hunting. He plays Sonny Vaccaro in the new movie Air that hits theaters on Wednesday, April 5th. At what age did you get your first pair of Air Jordans?
That's a good question. Late. I didn't really have the disposable income for them in high school when they came out. So I think I would have got them after college, actually.
I was wondering, though, you grow up a Celtic fan. They wore Converse. And I don't know if you wouldn't have worn Air Jordans because Celtics, they didn't wear Air Jordans.
No, he transcended the game. Those were definitely the hottest shoe. Like, before that, it was, Adidas and Puma and, the fat laces and all of that that was very much what Ben and I in our high school. We went, there was one school in our city. So there were 3,000 kids. It was really like, a good kind of cultural touchstone for kind of what was going on, like what was the cool music, what was the cool. And I remember those shoes specifically just before the Jordans. And then the Jordans came and just changed everything.
Were you an athlete?
No, I was in the first class to letter in theater. I have varsity letter in theater.
Did you get a letter jacket for that?
You had to buy the jacket, but I got the letter, and it had the little face of comedy and tragedy on it. But we had a great high school, but again, it was a really big school. So, for some context, Cambridge, where Ben and I grew up, was a basketball city. Like Pat Ewing lived on my street, or I should say, I lived on Pat Street. So Ben and I weren't making that basketball team. Obviously, when we were there, it was Ramil Robinson, and we'd win the state championship. We were in it every year.
What do you remember about Ewing on your block?
Well, Pat, the first game I ever saw in the Boston Garden, I was 10, and that was Pat's senior year. So he's, I guess, 8 years older than me. So, and I remember going to the Garden, and I knew, it was like this guy was from my hometown. He lived at the end of my street. He was, he was a superstar already, and he, that someday I was going to go to school where, and so I was cheering with the high school kids. It was really exciting. I just remember it being really exciting. And I remember walking by him at like the River Festival down on Memorial Drive and just, being all of 4'10" and walking by a 7-foot dude. It's like, oh my God. Yeah.
How does this script get to you?
I got Ben, sent it to me. He goes, Ben found it. You'd have to ask him how he found it. I don't remember how he found it or how he came across it, but he said, I read this thing. He goes, it's great. He goes, we should do this. We can do it really quickly. It's ready to go. And I read it, and I had that same, every time I picked this script up, I was stuck it's like when you bump into Goodfellas on TV, it's like, well, I'm here for 2 hours. I'm going to watch the rest of this. But the script felt like that. It was like, it was a page turner, and it was really exciting with all these characters. Really, it was a great kind of ensemble group it was fun thinking about, all right, who are we going to get to fill out this cast? And the parts were all just terrific.
Well, you talked about this after the screening in New York, that working with Viola Davis, it's like, this is easy. I mean, we're wrapped by 10:30 in the morning, and now we got to figure out what we're doing for lunch. She was that great as she plays Michael Jordan's mom.
Yeah. And that actually came from Michael. Ben went to see him before we got too pregnant with the movie. We basically, Ben said, well, I really need MJ's blessing. Like, I don't, we didn't want to do it. If he said, look, guys, that's not how anything happened. Don't just leave it alone. We would have left it alone. But actually what ended up happening was Ben went to talk to him, and he ended up, Ben called me after. I was in New York. I couldn't go down to Florida to see him. My kid had something that day. I can't remember, but I was waiting for Ben's call to see if we were going to go forward with this thing. Oh. And he goes, I got amazing news. He goes, I got great news and I got some bad news. I go, okay. And he goes, the great news is, he started to detail what Michael had told him. Michael was very specific about George Raveling being in the movie. Like, that was where he first heard about Nike, who he heard it from. And Howard White, as being these absolutely pivotal people in at that time and beyond, but specifically at that time. And then Ben was trying to get details about how everything went down, and Michael talked about his mother, and he talked about his mother with such reverence, and that it was really moving for Ben, and Ben started to realize how pivotal she was, like, for him in this deal, in his life, and everything. And Ben said, "Okay, well, all right." Well, so clearly he's thinking to himself, "Well, we gotta rework. We got to rework this script." But he goes, "Who should play your mom?" And before he got the sentence out, Jordan was like, "Viola Davis." And he was like, "Absolute, like, that's it." And so Ben said, the great news, he goes, "I know exactly what we got to do." Like, I have great direction for our rewrite. We have these 2 new characters to bring in, and we really need to expand Dolores Jordan and really make this hers. And I said, "Well, great. What's the bad news?" He goes, "We have to get Viola Davis." He goes, "If we don't get Viola Davis, we can't do the movie." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, I think I said to him at that point, I was like, "That's like having to get Michael Jordan on your basketball team. Like, she's an American treasure." So, but we rolled up our sleeves and really went to work on the rewrite and tried to write her a part that was worthy of her, and thankfully she agreed to do it. And I mean, as you saw, she's just, and it is that thing. I mean, I joke, but it's, I'd show up for work and do, a 7-page scene with her. And when you do a 7-page scene, normally in movies, a 2-page scene is the longest you'll do. But I do a long scene with Viola, and we'd be done by 10:30 in the morning. And I've just been in one of the best scenes I've ever been in my career. And she's like, we're like, "What else are we going to do today?" Like, I think that just happened. Like, it's really awesome working with somebody of that caliber.
How important is it to meet the person that you're going to portray in the movie?
It depends. I've done it both ways, where I've played someone and not met them, and played someone and met them. It's not an imitation, and it's not, what this movie really was trying to do was capture the spirit of these people, right? It's, we don't look like them. We're not, it's not about specifically who said what. And because 40 years later, everyone's got their own narrative of how exactly everything happened. And, but I did speak with Sonny, and what was really interesting, because, famously after this whole landmark deal, completely historic deal happened, these relationships all frayed and fractured, and, kind of, people got fired and people left, and, there was like sense of betrayal and acrimony and all this stuff. But what Sonny said was, "Look, this time that you're making this movie about was the most joyful time. This was just," he goes, "we were just great friends." And I think they all understand now. I mean, Sonny and Phil they're in their 80s, and looking back, like, at what an amazing thing that they accomplished, and that all that stuff feels like it's kind of water under the bridge, at least when they kind of look back now. I think it's not all jumbled together the way it might have been 30, 40 years ago. It's like they're very generous about each other, at least in the conversations I've had with them.
It's not exactly De Niro and Raging Bull, but you did gain some weight here, playing Sonny Vaccaro. How it's not stressful gaining weight, it's stressful losing weight.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can look at a pizza and gain 20 pounds. That's easy. But Ben also had a bodysuit for me. He wanted to put a little extra heft on me. So I put on probably 20 and then put on a bodysuit on top of that because it was mostly just for one joke in the movie, where Phil and I are having a conversation about running. And we just like the idea that, this guy worked at a running company, right?
It never ran.
And the idea was so loathsome to him. So it was really all for that kind of physical gag.
We're talking to Matt Damon. The movie is Air. He portrays Sonny Vaccaro. Last time we had you on, I think we got you in trouble in Boston.
What did I do?
You were Brady as a Buccaneer, and you were going to root for Brady in Tampa. Like I think you said
unapologetic. I'm unapologetic
okay.
about it. Yeah. I love that guy. I love that guy. It didn't mean I didn't root for the Pats. Of course, obviously watch the Pats and root for the Pats, but I just really cheer on, had David Ortiz been traded to another team, I still would have kept an eye on him and cared about how he did. When someone does that much for your team and your city.
Who's made you cry?
You got to be loyal.
Who's made you cry with joy more, Brady or your Red Sox?
Well, the 2004 Red Sox, I think I said this when it happened, when I drove back up to Boston for the parade, and I remember running up to Boylston Street and by myself, because my dad, my brother, everybody, we were getting my nephews, we were getting everybody to gather to walk down to the river to watch the duck boats as they went in. But I sprinted up to Boylston Street to see them as they came down that way by myself, and found myself outside like a Shawmut or some bank, just standing on the side of the road and crying out of gratitude for those guys. I love those guys. And all the subsequent teams. But that first one was, I can't even, and I think people from Boston could tell you, it was like it relieved a kind of psychic. It changed us at a fundamental level because, my grandfather didn't see the Red Sox win.
But it's like the Cubs, Matt. It changed the lovable losing Cubs, and it changed those fans. Like, it's weird that you almost embrace who you are, and then it's gone. And now, who are you? Yeah,
but who we were not just people who lost, but people who came so heartbreakingly close and lost. Right, which was a painful state to live in, right? And so it did, and I agree, it changed. I follow it less now. You know what I mean? But I don't know that that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? I feel like I have a healthier. I don't know. It really, the story that I told myself, I was 34 when they won, or 33. The story that I told myself for all those years was, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So, it did. It brought me to tears for sure.
I'll leave you with this. Could you see a scenario where you do what Cruise did for Top Gun with Jason Bourne, that maybe Jason Bourne is 60 and comes out of retirement or hiding?
Yeah, I could certainly see if we could think up a good story, it would, I would definitely do it. I love that character. It's been great to me, and I love the story. So, if there was a way to do it, I'm not against it. It's nice to see, the 60-year-old. Tom doesn't look 60, by the way. I don't know how old he is. He looks like he's
and he's doing
38.
all of his own stunts. I mean, he ruins it for you guys.
I don't even try. I mean, I had dinner with him 15 or so years ago, and I asked him about the one where he ran around the outside of the building, and that Mission Impossible. And he started the story by saying, the safety guy told me I couldn't do it. And I go, okay. And he goes, so I get another safety guy. And I'm like, stop. I'm like, you lost me already. Like, you win. You're the king.
Yeah. Congrats on the movie. Enjoyed it. Always great to talk to you again.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.